Well, I would firstly just like to say thank you to you all for being here to help us welcome Angela Rayner on a very special day, because it is International Women's Day, which makes it even more of a pleasure to have you, such a influential and successful woman, Angela. So thank you so much for giving up your time to come and talk to our students. Sujata and Tommy, two of our lovely students, are going to be interviewing Angela, so thank you to you guys for volunteering to do this and being brave. And I'm going to hand over for the rest of this to them. If everyone could just stay seated at the end, we would like to do some photographs and such like, so just stay where you are. And I'm going to hand over and leave you in the hands of Sujata and Tommy. Cheers.
So obviously, thank you, Angela, for joining us. We know you're very busy today. Before we get started, we'd just like to ask, like, how your background, how you got into politics, and like, what made you want to do it.
Okay, well, thank you for coming to listen to me. I got involved in politics by accident. When I was at school, I didn't do particularly very well at school. I was schooled in Stockport. My school was one of the first to ever become an academy under the last Labour government. It was called Avondale, but we called it Avon Jail, rather affectionately. And it wasn't a place where you went to be educated, it was a place where you got away from your parents for a couple of hours and sort of messed around with your mates, and that's how I saw education, to be fair. So I left school at 16 and pregnant with my son. And so I had no GCSEs, grade D or above. So I basically failed my GCSEs as well. But I was kind of more interested in what was going on in Sankey's Soap and places like that in Manchester, rather than what was going on in the classroom. And I was looking after my mum as well. So my mum had bipolar, and I was my mum's main carer from about the age of 10. So it was not an easy upbringing. So the only thing that was open to me really when I had Ryan, because everyone decided that when I was pregnant at 16, everyone looked at me and decided that I was going to be written off. You know, you could feel like the shame. Even when I was walking to get my GCSE results, it was like Game of Thrones shame thing. I was walking, everyone's like, there she is, look at her, oh my God. So after I had Ryan, I was absolutely determined to look after him and to be a mum to him, because I loved him more than anything. He was like the most precious thing. So I was looking for a job, and the only job at the time was to work for an agency as a home carer, looking after people, and I thought I could do that. And they didn't want any qualifications, and they'd take anyone. And because I wanted to work nights because I had my little one, they were like, when can you start? So I started working for an agency. Then after a few months working for an agency, not getting paid travel pay, being paid pretty rubbish, a job came up in the local council, and the girls who I worked alongside said, you should go for that because you've got experience now. So I started working for the council, where they paid your travel time, they paid your holiday pay, they trained you. I got my MVQ level 2 in care. So I started to do really well, and then became a union rep. And that's really how I got involved in politics, because I was seeing how we treat our older people. I thought we treated our older people worse than we treat pets. And that was really bad. I thought it was, people who have fought for our country, that have delivered an NHS, etc. I thought they deserved better than what they were getting. So I got involved in the union movement to stop them outsourcing the service, and then through the union got involved in equal pay for women. International Women's Day, I fought for equal pay for local government workers, and that's how I got involved in politics, because at the time Gordon Brown was the Prime Minister, and we needed more money to pay for the equal pay claims that the councils had against them. And there was a lot of politicians who I thought didn't sound like us, didn't look like us, and didn't know what was going on in local government, and somebody said, you should stand, and I'm like, I couldn't do that. And they pushed me forward, and the only reason I'm sat in front of you here today as the Shadow Education Secretary is because other people have seen something in me that I necessarily haven't seen in myself, and I needed somebody to give me that little bit of encouragement to push me forward.
Thank you. So obviously one of the reasons why we've invited you here today is in celebration of International Women's Day. So what we wanted to ask you is, how does it feel to be a prominent female figure in British politics during such a pivotal time for the push for equal rights in the work industry?
It feels kind of strange, because I still see myself as that Angie Rayner who was pregnant at 16, who went for a crisis loan, and everyone looked down on her and treated her like she was something off that had fallen off your shoe. I still feel like that sometimes, but I also feel really confident about people from my class now. I get quite angry. about the way in which women are treated. I never really saw myself as a feminist. Now I'm absolutely feminist with capital F. I get quite angry about discrimination in society. I get quite angry about the class-based system that's still in our country, because I see it now more than anything. So my confidence now is about trying to prove it's not necessarily about me, but it's about the people who are like me, who I think the system discriminates against and doesn't treat right. So I represent them, so it's easier for me to be confident about that. It is difficult. So, because I speak with a Mancunian accent, which I deliberately do, and I still don't say it party, it's party, and I deliberately keep that accent as much as I can. And every time I do, I've just literally said, I'm just charging my phone now, because I was on Radio 4 this morning. Whoever, you probably don't, I listen to Radio 1. I only listen to Radio 4 when I really have to. But everyone who's into politics generally tends to listen to Radio 4. And because I appeared on the Today programme on Radio 4 this morning, my phone's been going wild. And now half of them will be saying, Angie, you're brilliant, I really appreciated what you said. And then the other half will be saying, oh my God, she doesn't speak proper, she's as thick as mince, she needs to resign, she's this, that, the other, and loads of misogynistic abuse that I'll have on my phone nicely to look at, which members of my team will sift through and block, delete and mute, so I don't get to see all the hate. So if they send me any hate, normally it doesn't get through, so I won't bother. Send me any love, my team leave it for me to see. But it's quite toxic being a prominent woman in politics at the moment. It's very toxic. My friend Jo Cox was assassinated doing her job like I do on a Friday, like I am here today, just over 2 years ago, 3 years coming up in June. And that was pretty traumatic for me as a new member of Parliament as well. So it can be difficult. I was in the news this week because I spoke about the fact that I've had death threats. I've got panic buttons in my house as a result of the measures that have had to be put for MPs at the moment, and we have to be careful about what we do and where we say we're going these days. But, you know, you can't be silenced. No one can ever be silenced into not doing their job. And I think you just have to keep doing that, but, you know, be sensible about what you do. But it is a difficult environment for us.
Of course, thank you.
So obviously you said like you have quite an unconventional route into politics, you might argue. So how do you feel like you have to deal with like the hurdles that you might be faced with?
Yeah, it has been unconventional, and it has been quite weird for me as well, because when I went into Parliament, I never went to university. I went to college, I did my MVQ level 2 in college, and I did a sign language course, but I never went to university, and Parliament is set up like an old boys network. It's like a private school, basically. You walk in there and it looks like Hogwarts, and the way in which they network and the way in which everyone knows everyone. Like, even in the Labour Party, there was a lot of people that were either working for an MP or knew the MP or related or was born thinking, I'm going to be a politician and then I'm going to be the Prime Minister of the country. And I didn't really get this club because it wasn't something that... It's a bit like doctors. You know, if you've got a doctor parent, then you're likely to be a doctor. It sort of runs in the family, and teachers is the same. Well, politics is a bit like that. Lots of people know each other. And so that was a bit weird for me because I was a new kid on the block. Really new, and I didn't even know the lingo for the legal legislation. You know, they have SIs. I thought SIs were like STIs. I'm like, what's an SI? You know, I knew what it was. I knew what we knew it was, but it was like, oh no, that's not what it is. It's a statutory instrument. What's the statutory? What's deferred divisions? What's secondary legislation? What's primary legislation? What's this lingo? And then not only did they have to grapple with all of that, when you first get there, you don't even get an office. You literally go there, they all treat you like mom, and this guy tried to take my bag. I'm like, you're not taking my bag, mate. That is not the first image that people are going to have of me, some guy dressed in a suit taking my bag off me and carrying it around, because that's just the environment. They treat you like you're some sort of god. You even have your own lift and staircases and everything in Parliament, members lift only. It's like strange things that go on there. So I found it really strange, and because I didn't know many people, I found that even stranger. And then because of what happened when I went into Parliament, politics has taken a really strange route over the last couple of years. And if you remember, we had the referendum, which we lost, and then David Cameron sort of ran off and left us in this sort of mess we're in now. Then we had the leadership competitions in the Labour Party, and Jeremy got elected. Nobody expected Jeremy to get elected. All the front bench resigned, all the staff left, and then all the back benches that had been there 5 seconds suddenly were front bench and had no staff and nothing. So it was all a bit crazy. So I had to survive these last couple of years being over-promoted in a very, very short period of time. I've literally done 15 years of a good, successful parliamentary career in 3. That's quite an achievement to do. I didn't really want to do it that way. It was very difficult. But even doing that in the context of my background, so for instance, some would say now, you've done all right, haven't you, Ange? Like it was some sort of big game plan for me to get into the position that I'm in today. So it has been a bit difficult to try and earn respect off the politicians that are there, earn respect off the lobby groups that are involved, and learn your craft at the very same time. So that's been quite tough.
Yeah, so as we know, there's like a lack of female politicians in politics, and as you said yourself, they face a lot of online abuse. So what do you say to the people that take part in that online abuse on social media platforms?
I mean, I think more needs to be done. I was criticised, I got a load of social media abuse when I said on media that I felt that people shouldn't be able to have anonymous accounts. And some people said that's the only way sometimes they think they can speak freely on certain issues. And I felt, no, I still think and I still believe that the best way of dealing with some of the social media abuse is that people can't be anonymous online, because I think if you are, you say things that you would never say if your employer or your friends or colleagues would be able to identify who you are. And I think online there is a lot more that the social media platforms can do to stop some of the online abuse that's there. They've got algorithms now, there's lots of things they could do. Just check out my social media for one day, you'll see it. And it's actually, there's been some research that has been done. And for example, a lot of the abuse that I would get, and I would say I get thousands of coming in, but it would be about 100 accounts that will have bot accounts, so they'll have multiple accounts, but it's like one person using multiple accounts, and they deliberately try and distort. So at one particular time, it might only be a handful of haters calling me, but they'll use hundreds of different accounts to do it in a short period of time. So then if you were, in your mind, you'd be thinking, oh, everyone hates me. You know, and that's what social media does. It distorts what's happening actually in the real world. And I think there's a lot more that needs to be done to look at that, combat it, but also about protecting young people. Because life's like filter now. Like if you've not got a Snapchat filter on, your life's rubbish, isn't it? You know, even on Facebook and that, everyone puts the good bits on, or really to the other extreme, everyone tells you how bad their life is. But you know, there is this thing about how you can look into other people's lives, and it's not real life, it's not reality, but it can distort the way you feel about yourself and your own life. And I think it's particularly dangerous for young people now, not only because you change your views. Like my son's 22 now, and some of the stuff he used to put on Facebook, I defriended him. Because he literally was like, my mates are friends with him, so keep an eye on him. But like he literally put things on. I was like, I really don't agree with that. So he put something on his Facebook, and he said, Mum, it's a joke. And I'm like, I don't find it funny. And not only do I not find it funny, but in 15 years' time, you might regret that you've put that on your social media. And I think in this world, there is a lot of education and a lot of support that needs to be given for young people in particular that are growing up in an era and a time that's completely different to what the most politicians of today, because most politicians of today grew up in a time when there wasn't even the World Wide Web, let alone social media platforms.
So obviously being a very successful member in Parliament, I think it's safe to assume that a lot of young people, boys and girls, would look up to you. So what advice would you give yourself when you was our age?
My best advice is to celebrate who you are. Don't try and be something else. Don't look for that magical, better version of yourself, because you are the best version of you and you are unique. There's nobody else in the world like you. And don't let people make you feel that you're not right, for whatever reason that might be. And when I was younger, I was always chasing, thinking I wasn't a good enough mum. People were giving me advice on how to be the better parent. People were making me feel bad because I became a parent as a teenage mum. People were making me feel bad because I didn't get the right results. I didn't look the right. I had ginger hair. I was scruffy or whatever else. I was constantly measuring myself against I don't know, lots of people do it. I'm sure lots of you will sort of relate. Everyone else, your bar set for everyone else, your friends and everyone else is about here, but your bar that you set for yourself is like way up here. So you judge yourself by a really harsh standard. I would say the best advice to give to anyone is don't be harsh on yourself. Why would you judge your mates in a much more compassionate way than you judge yourself. And that's something that we all do. And you'll spend a lot of your younger years worrying about things that when you get older you really won't worry about. So my best advice is that you're going to get times where you feel really rubbish and you'll get times when you feel really great, but that's life and that's living and that's the way it is. But you've got to, you know, just keep pushing yourself out there and be proud of who you are for the ups and downs, because we're all part of that. And I find that difficult now, because when I have a down in the whole media. So for me, my down is shared by me, by my team, and by you lot. Everyone sees it, and that's celebrities are the same. You know, if they're having a bad day or their other half cheats on them or something, it's like it's a big issue. Everyone knows about it. So it's hard when you're in those circumstances, but you've just got to understand and embrace that I will make mistakes, and I do make mistakes. It's just it ends up on the front cover of the Star. I did it on Vegetarian Week. I said I can have fish. And then I got trolled forever, and that's not vegetarianism. Well, lots of people who think they're vegetarian do eat fish, by the way, so I don't think it was that extreme. But just as an example, I got trolled and got on the front cover of media for saying that. But I actually think it's really important that people see that as well, because they see that people make mistakes and they can relate to that. Whereas if you see me as just perfect or just the good bits, then it distorts what people see. So just be yourself and embrace it and be happy with who you are and put yourself out there, and you can achieve things. You will fail at things, but you can achieve things if you keep going and keep trying.
Thanks for that. So if you were to become leader of the Labour Party eventually, if you wanted to...
I like all them caveats.
Yeah. What would your plans be for young people in education?
I mean, at the moment, I am the Shadow Education Secretary, and I want to be the Education Secretary, and I want to prove to people, and actually I've done a lot of work on the National Education Service, which is mirrored on the National Health Service, which is free at the point of use, and it's about having a comprehensive education system from cradle till grave. It's really quite a fundamental big challenge to do. There's so many vested interests, so much legality, so much policy and so much money and investment that's required to deliver a national education service that it's quite a big challenge, and I really genuinely want the opportunity to do it. And my biggest ambition is for my grandchildren, when they grow up, is to see me in the way that we see Nye Bevan, and to honestly see that Angela Rayner has created a national education service which has the synergies of a national health service and transforms Britain for that reason, that gives people opportunities for free education, that culturally you see education as something that you do as part of your day-to-day life all the time, and that's what I want to see as my legacy. And I really hope I get the opportunity to do that, because like I say, my bar for me is up here, and if I deliver that, then I've delivered what I consider to be my bar. So that's what I genuinely want to do and want to achieve. I want to help a leader of the Labour Party get in first. I didn't want to see myself in the position I'm in now. It was frightening enough going into politics, let alone being where I am now. I'm confident where I am. I think I've got a foundation now. I feel like I know my stuff now, whereas before I was like, ooh, this is a bit scary. Whereas now I feel like I've got a grounding and I understand what I'm trying to achieve. And I really just want to get out there and achieve that now before I run any further forward, to be honest. So I really desperately want Jeremy to become the Prime Minister of the country. I think we need a different government, so desperately need it. I don't want to be in the opposition benches, because then you're just pretending. You're just opposing. You're not actually physically. I can tweak it, and I have done, and I've pushed the government on a number of issues and achieved things, but it's not quite the same as getting your hands on the Department for Education and really reforming. So I honestly, with every grain in me, I want us to get into government now, and I want to be the Education Secretary so I can prove everything I've been saying, we can deliver it, and I want to be able to deliver that. That's where I see myself over the next few years.
Thank you.
And just a final question about international politics from one capital F feminist to another. How does it make you feel that the President of the USA has such misogynistic and offensive views on women?
Oh, it's so depressing, isn't it? It really is. I think Trump was a spasm. I think, do you know what? I think, right, there's a problem that's going on at the moment, and I think in America, The Americans were sick of magnolia politics, right? And in Britain, we've had the same sort of issue, sick of magnolia politics. And they wanted to shake up the system because lots of Americans were really cross because they felt economically disadvantaged and they felt like the system was against them. They felt like that it was like an elite class of people that made decisions and they didn't have any access to it. And I think that is my only excuse to why they would like bring someone like Trump in, you know. It was just like to wind it up. It's like going to a family do and inviting that uncle that you know is really out there that's going to cause trouble just because you just wanted to mix it up and not make it as boring as usual. But honestly, I think you've just got to challenge it, and there hasn't been enough challenging in some of the dog whistle racism, quite frankly, we've seen in the UK. It's been allowed to happen. UKIP's not been challenged enough. We had go home bans. We had Diane Abbott on posters all round saying, you know, do you want her as your Home Secretary? Really nasty politics, in truth. And our media have done it, and politicians have done it to a certain degree, and Trump does it. And I think they've been allowed to fester and ferment in their little cauldrons of hate. And instead of looking at how we can collaborate and see the achievements we've created together, we started to turn on each other and say, the reason I ain't got a council house is because of that person over there, or the reason my situation is bad is because of my neighbour there, instead of actually looking at the system and how the system has created that. And I think that's so important. We've got to learn the lessons of that because the far right is on the move. We've seen it across Europe, and we're seeing it with the likes of Donald Trump, who I think is really quite a disgusting human being on a number of different levels. And I think we've got to challenge it, and we've got to have politicians that mean what they say and say what they mean, and politicians that people have faith in. And that's one of the reasons I won't change and become one of those triangulated type politicians that just says what they're given on a piece of paper to say. I think you've just got to speak from conviction and do the right thing, and then we'll get rid of people like Donald Trump, because I genuinely don't think most Americans have his views. I just think people are really frustrated and they're looking for excuses to blame other people for what's going on in their lives, but they're blaming the wrong people, and there isn't enough voices making that point. There is there's some new Democrats that are coming forward that look really good and really enthusiastic, that are shaking up the system, and that's the same in the UK. So I'm also optimistic. I'm optimistic as well because of young people voted. People said young people don't vote. People don't care. People don't vote. They thought we were strange doing lots of things for young people. Young people don't vote. Why are you doing things for young people? It's the older people you need to worry about. Old people vote. Young people don't. Well, I think young people did vote and did really well in the European. They tried their best to change the system for what it was, and I think people voted at the 2017 general election, young people in particular, who they didn't expect to. And I think we've just got to convince people that actually, if you want to change the system, you've got to, first of all, vote and engage in it and then be part of it. So I expect some of you in this room, quite frankly, to become councillors, leading politicians, or, you know, company directors, CEOs, public service workers, all of you all have a place and a role to play, whatever you decide to do in your future, to change that system and to challenge discrimination where you see it, and then people like Trump won't come through.
Thank you very much.
So I was wondering if you'd mind if we open up the floor to any burning questions from the audience.
So does anyone have a question that they want to ask Angela? Yeah? Just stand up a sec.
Education for over 18. Do you want to take a few? Or?
Yeah, okay, yeah. Anyone else got a question?
Yeah. In interviews and things, like with the media, do you think you've ever been asked questions that you wouldn't have been asked if you were a man?
That's a juicy question.
Caitlin? How do you feel about the current government erasing women from the education spec?
Okay.
Have we got any more?
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, well, I think education should be free at the point of use for you, whatever age you are. And that's what we've been importantly looking at. And we've got a lifelong learning commission that we set up to look at that particular issue at the moment around post-18 education, because it's been decimated. It really has been decimated. But you know, if you look at the world of work and you look at automation and you look at what's happening to our economy for the future, people are not going to be in the same jobs, and we can't just rely on people going to work for a set, going to school for a set period, going to university or college or apprenticeship, and then that's it, they get a job and that's it. Can't have that anymore. People need to be retrained. And if, quite frankly, we are leaving the European Union and we are going to curb immigration and all of this rhetoric that keeps coming out now, then we need to skill. We need a skills set within this country that we don't have. If we told everyone to go home, we'd have no NHS, scientists would be gone overnight. You know, we'd literally, this country would fall apart without the migration that we have in this country. Absolutely positive. Fact. Yes, it comes with challenges. Everything comes with challenges. But the migration to this country has had a net positive effect on this country, whether people accept it or not. That's not me putting any slant on it. That's a fact. That's the way it is. But you won't think that the way people see it. So we have to look at how we can engage in education for everyone post-18. And I see education as not just about an economic situation, which it is, and it's important, and it's part of our industrial strategy, but it's about what sort of society we want to live in. My mum did a cookery course. If she hadn't have done that cookery course, I would have probably gone into care because Mum couldn't cook. I mean, when we got a microwave, she still doesn't know how. If we get a new microwave, it takes me about 3 weeks to tell her how to use the microwave. She just finds it really difficult. But if she hadn't have had that opportunity, then we probably would have ended up in care, and I probably wouldn't have thanked the state for it. And there's so many people that are lonely now. If your partner dies after being with them for 30, 40 years, you might live another 20, 30 years and you're just stuck isolated. Education is a way of getting people back into society. It also creates society, a better society, because when people who are more educated will understand the world around them, are less likely to be bigoted, less likely to be miserable, less likely to be isolated. And so education is much more than just giving someone a particular set of knowledge at a particular time. And that's why lifelong learning to me and post-18 is so important, not just economically, but in societal terms. Media, yes, all the time. In fact, even in selections, when I was being selected to become an MP, I was asked how was it going to go with my family. I lose track of the amount of times that I get asked about how is it going with my family. I get, even my kids' school still ring me at times instead of I was like, ring my husband, I'm not here, I'm in London, I abandoned my kids years ago. So, but you know, society is just still that way, that woman does all of the work, and you know, women's jobs, you can see it structurally with, you know, in schools, you know, some of the lowest paid staff are support staff, predominantly female. You know, early years, predominantly female workforce, get paid rubbish. It's probably one of the most important jobs anyone could do is look at, you know, educating children 0 to 5, looking after them, but they're paid like minimum wage if they're lucky. So there is still a bias against women, and there is a bias in the media, I think, against women as well, and women get treated more harshly than men do, I think, as well. So I do think there's a problem with the way the media and society treat women, and there's a problem about the way the media and society treat class and people from the north. And accents, if you speak with my accent, then you must be thick. And that is still an issue that is implied by a lot, but is also expressly said to me on numerous occasions on social media. So I know it's still a problem that we need to fix. I mean, some of the way in which you fix it is you don't be the person they want you to be, you be the person you are. And that's why I keep being me, because I want people like me to come forward, because like recruits like. And if you can't see yourself in someone like me, then I won't bring the next people forward. So I'm sat on this chair now talking about me, not for me, but because I want you to see yourself in me and to go forward and to tell other people to do the same, and then challenge the bias that's there. And in terms of erasing women, I think our curriculum at the moment has many issues with it. Not only has it got issues around women and women's role, but it also has issues around black and minority ethnic people and their role that they've played in society, and in British society in particular, and in our culture. And our education system doesn't do enough for that at the moment. But part of that is because education secretaries thinks it's their job to interfere with the national curriculum. I personally think I'm the least qualified person you'd want to go meddling in a curriculum, and now nor should I be. So if I'm Education Secretary, and one of the things that we're consulting on at the moment is not only about a curriculum review, but setting up an independent body that looks at a national curriculum. That means that we actually do have a national curriculum that is fit for the 21st century and that people like me can't meddle with for the future, that it's based upon what our society is and what our needs are and how we can progress going forward by people that have earned the right to be on that panel, rather than by people like me who just get elected and then their leader decides, oh, it's you, and then they come in and say, well, I quite liked it because I was, grammar school educated and I think it was really good to learn about, Mr. Kipling or something, and then sticks it on the national curriculum. I just think that's the wrong way of doing those things. So I do think there is things we need to do to reform the curriculum, but I also think one of the best reforms and legacies I can do is make sure that people like me can't go around meddling with a curriculum every time they get into power.
Has anyone else got any more questions?
Do you think the education system should be more creative instead of focusing on more academic aspects?
Yeah, I'm totally biased though, because I'm a creative person. So, I mean, like, one of the reasons I think I succeeded so well in Parliament is because I'm a vocational learner, and you can't learn how to be a politician from a book. It's a vocational job. So I think I thrived in that environment because that's the way I learn. But our curriculum at the moment is too academic. It doesn't give enough value to creative and to technical and to vocational training as well. But it's funny because there was something in the media a few weeks ago, because in private schools they can still do the IGCSE, which is much more, which is different. It's much less academic and much more sort of fluid. And yet, because of the way Ofsted measures our curriculum in our schools, like, most state kids don't get that opportunity, they get disadvantaged because of it. So we're measured in a much harsher way, and our opportunities are much more narrow in the state system. Well, that's not fair. That's not what I want. People often say to me, why don't you close private schools? I don't want to close them. I want our state system to be better than them. So if you're wasting your money on the private schools, good luck to you. But my job is about making sure our state education system is the best it can be. And, if there's stuff in the private schools that are great, I'll have it. But what they do is they weed out. They don't have the challenges that our state schools have. We have the best teachers in the world in some of our schools that are considered disadvantaged, underperforming, or what they call it, requires improvement. I hate that term. Every school should require some improvement. No school's perfect, is it? So I really don't like the way in which they do that. My school was a failing school, and I was a failing pupil. But look at me, I'm sat here as you shadow one of the most successful female politicians of my time. I wasn't failed by my education system. If it wasn't for those teachers that looked after me, I wouldn't be the resilient girl that got through all those challenges I went through in my life. So I think at the moment, our state system is not given the support it needs to be able to deliver on our great education system. And that's what I want to achieve. I want to value excellence. How do you measure that? And we're consulting on that at the moment, how to measure excellence. And I want to reward our state school system and allow it to be much more broader and broaden the curriculum as well, and support our arts, support music, support culture. Some of our best has come from, like, Manchester. Some of our, the Brit. I was at the Brit Awards. Yeah, I went. Sell out. I was at the Brit Awards. I took my mate as well and her kid who's never been to London. It was sweet. But I went to the Brit Awards and I was talking to the Brit School, and that was and they're hopefully opening one in Manchester. But our talent isn't in London or in a particular class. If anything, our talent is in the working class and was in Manchester. It's the home of creativity. And yet a lot of the creative arts and a lot of the opportunities for working class people has been stripped out. And Tracy Brabin is my shadow children's minister, and she's an actress. She's been in loads of stuff, including Coronation Street and stuff like that. And she knows, like, Cindy off EastEnders, Michelle Collins. She brings her out sometimes. It's really cool. But they're all working class people, and they were given that opportunity. Steve Coogan, people like that, they were working class from our area, and now a lot of people are not given those opportunities. So I want our education system to be able to do that and to expand opportunities for that, because it's not just about the individuals and allowing them to grow, but it's about our society and allowing us to grow. as a whole community, and we'll only be able to do that if we do broaden that curricular base.
Yeah. Thanks very much. It was. Oh, Peter has a question. Sorry.
I've got a question. Yeah.
Sorry, Peter.
Angela,
Sorry.
why do you think we have International Women's Day? And you've talked quite a bit about feminism. Can you explain what you mean by feminism? Because it can be a word that people feel a little uncomfortable with.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, International Women's Day came about, like, 'cause women like me, because I was in the trade union movement. It was like strikes and about how women can find their place. And to be honest, and that question about feminism, and I referred to it because I said I never really saw myself as a feminism and as a feminist. And the reason why is because I thought it was quite a middle class thing. Like even the suffragette movement, it was not for whites and me wouldn't have been allowed in the suffragette movement. You know, we were like total. We didn't even get the vote 100 years ago. Women like me, we were like way behind that. You know, because there's class involved in it as well as females. So I found it to be a little bit. It was a bit too snobbery for me, feminism. To be honest, when I was younger, I thought, well, you know, I'm just as good as any bloke. There's no trouble. Why people making that assumption? And in the trade union movement, there was self-organised groups, and I thought, I don't need to be part of a self-organised group. I want to be myself. And when I was going to be a member of Parliament, I didn't want to stand in an all-women shortlist. I wanted to stand on an open list. I'm as good as any bloke, and I've proved that since. But now the barriers that were there were even hard for me to come through. That's the truth. I was as good as any bloke. But the truth is, those barriers are there, and they held me back. That's a fact. I should have been selected years before I was selected. I had to get selected on an all-women shortlist. I'm more successful than the majority of the men that are in Parliament, but I had to prove I was even better than them, like miles ahead of them. That's not fair. It's not equality. So that's what feminism is for me. It's about looking after each other. And there's another thing about feminism. It's about not trashing other girls. Girls trash girls more than blokes do. Like, honestly, like I call them alpha women. That, like, Margaret Thatcher was one. I made it, so other women should make it as well. But, like, literally push them down. It's like, I'm the woman and there's no more space for any other women here because I need to fill that space that's there. There's loads of space for women. There's so much space for women. And if we pitch ourselves against each other, then we're never going to be able to get out of that discrimination that's there. So my thing this year has been about transgender women. Because transgender women have had hell. And I've had women on the left accusing me of not being a feminist because I believe transgender women have a right to be women. I don't even understand why we even are having the debate. To me, it's simple. They're a woman. Why are you even debating it? But we still have that debate to have, which is absolutely heartbreaking. But I don't want to be fighting my sisters who call themselves feminist over this. I want us to fight the discrimination that we all face. Every woman. You know, we shouldn't be pitching, well, my discrimination's worse than yours. We should be helping each other and supporting each other. So feminism for me is about what can you do to encourage the woman next to you, to help the woman next to you to do well. And that's how feminism works for me. It's about don't hate each other. And the men in the room, some of the best feminists I know are men. And that's about encouraging women, speaking up for women, treating women with respect, and also sometimes move aside. Don't be a gatekeeper. You know, sometimes you get privilege and you understand that. And if you feel that, then move aside and allow women the space to come through and pop them on the shoulder and say, you're brilliant. Why are you not doing that? Because it took people to do that for me. And that's feminism for me. It's about encouraging and finding the space to allow every single woman and girl to be the best version of themselves and to celebrate that. And that sort of feminism is the right sort of feminism for me. Other people would see it in different ways, but I think it's as simplistic as that. It's about helping each other and creating space and support so that women can do well.
Thanks very much. Anyone got any final questions at all? No? Thanks very much, Angela. It was really great hearing you speak and answering our questions. Got anything to say, Tommy?
Yeah, just thank you. I think we should give a massive round of applause.
Yeah.
Thank you.
we have one